Good day there. Good day there. Good day. Good day. It is David again, and we are talking about the book of 1 Kings. Remember the history of Israel, everything from Genesis through into the Kings, Nehemiah and Esther. It's all about the history of Israel and where God's chosen people have been. And it's important history for any Christian to understand and know, because the history of their Messiah, the Jewish nation, is crucial to our understanding God and who he is and his work with his own people, as he called them. 1 Kings 17 talks about the early ministry of Elijah. Elijah is one of the most famous prophets in the Old Testament that we read about. Elijah telling about God's judgment onto the people, and then him being provided for by God through the widow in 1 Kings 17, Elijah's promises to her, and then Elijah raising the widow's son. Then chapter 18, the victory at Carmel, pretty amazing. The end of the drought comes. Elijah meets Ahab. Elijah meets Obadiah, talks about Mount Carmel. This is a test between God and the false gods of Baal and the idol worship and all that. He comes there at Mount Carmel and says, if your God is real, may he bring fire down on this sacrifice. And all the prophets try the best they can to make it happen. And Elijah's like, of course it's not going to happen, because God is the God of Israel, is the only God, and he is going to bring fire down upon the sacrifice. And that's exactly what God does, brings down fire out of heaven. And then Elijah prays for rain at that point. He had originally prayed for the drought too. So it's interesting that he was able to pray for the rain to come again. Goes on a 14-mile cross-country run. And then chapter 19, God is encouraging Elijah at this point. Is after all of that stuff, after all of the sacrifice of the altar and Carmel, Elijah goes into a bit of a depression. He starts getting very, very, very frustrated with all the threats coming from Jezebel. And he despairs, and God says, don't worry, I've got this. You're in my hands, and there's other people out there. There are not Christians, but there are other Jews that follow me and are doing what I asked them to do. So it's kind of helpful for Elijah at that point. There's an amazing part in chapter 19 there. And then chapter 20, God leads Israel to do victories over Syria. Ben-Hadad comes against Samaria. There's a whole thing there. Israel is given victory. And then they are given victory over Syria. There's a whole thing there too. Ahab's willingness to make peace with an enemy of God. The prophets give him an object lesson. It's pretty interesting when the prophets come and Ahab doesn't want to listen to them. He's like, this is what's going to happen. Then chapter 21, the murder of Naboth. Naboth has a vineyard and Ahab wants to take it. And there's a whole thing about the inheritance. And you can get into that study. Elijah confronts Ahab. And in chapter 22, Ahab's death is foretold. And the whole Micaiah prophet thing there is pretty fascinating, how Micaiah is speaking the prophecy, and it's like nobody wants to listen to him because he speaks the truth. It's like, but if I'm going to speak the truth, Ahab, you are going to die in this battle. And Ahab does die in the battle. And that is the end of 1 Kings. Go on from there into 2 Kings. Remember, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 Kings, 2 Kings, 1 Chronicles, 2 Chronicles, those are all at one time 3 big books that they split into 2 in order to make it easier for the scrolls to not be quite as big. That's all it is. But again, studying the scriptures and studying each of the things that God tells us about is important, especially when you're understanding the things that God did with the kings of Israel and Judah, and the things that he did with the prophets, and these messages to us to be encouraged. Elijah was going through a very big deal of discouragement. Even though there were other prophets out there, even there were other people that had not gone into false idol worship, you're not alone. There are other people out there serving God, and that's what getting into communities of believers is important, especially when you're studying the Word. It's important for us to continue finding people that also trust in the Lord, that we can rely on, that we can grab hold of. That's what church is important. Small groups are important. Life groups, whatever you want to call them. Get together with people that also trust and know in the Lord and seek Him, so that we can do our best to do what we are called to do, which is go out there and make disciples of all people. God bless. Have a great day. Pray for peace. Amen.